What Harry Styles just did might surprise you. And I'm not talking about a new album or a movie role. I'm talking about a quiet financial move that has a very vocal corner of the internet absolutely spiraling right now. Picture this. The man who literally built a global brand on the phrase "treat people with kindness." The guy who waves pride flags on stage and makes you feel like you just got a hug through a stereo speaker, is now facing a wave of side-eye and outright frustration. Why? Because according to multiple reports surfacing from entertainment trade publications and sources close to production deals, Harry Styles has quietly put his money behind a sector of the entertainment industry that he, quite frankly, has spent years subtly mocking. We're talking about reality television, and not the highbrow documentary-style competition shows, but the kind of unscripted drama that thrives on manufactured conflict, hot tub confrontations, and rose ceremonies that feel more like hostage negotiations. It feels like a plot twist nobody saw coming, and I have to say, as someone who has followed his career trajectory from the X Factor days to headlining Coachella, this one made me pause mid-scroll and say out loud to an empty room, "Wait, really?" It's the kind of news that makes you tilt your head because it doesn't just feel off-brand. It feels like a full-on glitch in the matrix of his carefully curated, retro leather and pearls persona. And yet, here we are, watching the internet do what the internet does best: archive dive. Fans have been pulling up old interviews faster than you can say watermelon sugar, specifically those moments where Harry very clearly distanced himself from the low-stakes, high-octane world of reality TV. You remember the vibe, right? The subtle eye roll when asked about certain dating shows, the polite but firm "I don't really watch that" response that made you feel like he was just a little too elevated for the chaos. That's the core of the pushback here. It's not that he invested in a tech startup or a sustainable fashion line. That would be a headline that gets a collective awe and a million retweets. The sticking point, and this is where the analysis gets fascinating, is the perceived shift in authenticity. For a star whose appeal is so intrinsically tied to the idea of being genuine and warm, profiting from a format that is, by its very nature, often edited to be anything but genuine, feels like a contradiction that fans are struggling to reconcile. Sources claim the investment is part of a larger, diversified portfolio managed by his business team, and according to those same sources, the production company in question is responsible for a slate of upcoming reality shows that are, for lack of a better term, aggressively juicy. We're not talking about a cooking competition. We're talking about the kind of shows where the promo trailer is just a montage of people throwing drinks and slamming doors. And look, let's be honest about the economics of the industry here. This is where I, as someone observing from the outside, have to put on my business analyst hat. Reality TV is a cash cow. It's not just profitable, it's the financial backbone that keeps the lights on at a lot of networks while they gamble on expensive scripted dramas that might get canceled after 3 episodes. The profit margins on these shows are, frankly, absurd. You don't have to pay A-list actor salaries. You don't have to build elaborate fantasy sets. You just need a mansion rental, some strategically placed mics, and a group of people willing to air their grievances on national television for a shot at clout. From a purely financial standpoint, Harry Styles, or rather, the financial advisors managing the Harry Styles empire, made a textbook-savvy move. You follow the money, and the money is screaming from the rooftops of unscripted TV soundstages. It's the kind of investment that makes accountants smile and publicists sweat, and you can almost see the logic play out in a boardroom somewhere. Hey, this is a low-risk, high-reward asset class that consistently overperforms in ad revenue. That's the analytical take. But the emotional take is where the story lives, because you can't monetize a feeling of betrayal. The backlash, while not catastrophic to his career by any stretch of the imagination, is a fascinating case study in modern fandom entitlement. It's not a scandal, it's a disappointment. And in the world of stan culture, that can sometimes sting worse than a scandal. People expect their idols to live by the lyrics they sing. So when the guy who croons about not wanting to be lonely is funding a show where people are literally isolated and gaslit for entertainment. Well, the cognitive dissonance is pretty loud. But let's peel back another layer because this narrative isn't just about Harry writing a check. There's a bigger and frankly funnier question hanging over this whole situation. Why do any of us actually care? And I ask that with zero snark intended. It's a genuine curiosity gap I want to explore with you. I think we care because Harry Styles occupies a unique space in pop culture. He's not just a musician, he's a vibe. He's the human equivalent of a warm sweater and a cup of chamomile tea. He made it cool for men to wear nail polish and feather boas without it feeling like a gimmick. He's the safety school in the game of celebrity crushes. Everyone feels safe and welcome. But now, with this quiet investment, he's showing us the machine behind the curtain. He's showing us that, oh right, this is a business. And that's the jolt of reality, pun somewhat intended, that stings a little. We want to believe the art. We want to believe in the kindness. And then we see the financial statements buried in a SEC filing somewhere that tell us he's profiting from X on the beach, Mariana Trench Edition, or whatever the next iteration of heartbreak and revenge is called. It's like finding out your favorite indie coffee shop secretly owns a massive stake in a chain that sells burnt gas station coffee. You can still enjoy the latte, but the taste is just a little bit different now. According to reports, this investment has been in the works for well over a year, which means it's not a spur-of-the-moment decision. It was deliberate. And this is where my opinion, for what it's worth, starts to soften a bit. I can't help but think that maybe, just maybe, we're holding him to an impossible standard. Do I find it a little ironic? Absolutely. The irony is thicker than the fog machine at one of his concerts. But do I think it makes him a bad person? Not even remotely. It makes him a rich person looking to get richer, which is, unfortunately, the most boring and predictable thing a rich person can do. The difference is, he didn't put out a press release bragging about it. It got discovered. He's facing backlash for being quiet about it, but what was the alternative? A flashy Instagram post with a caption like, "So excited to bring you the messiest, most unhinged dating drama you've ever seen." That would have been 1,000 times worse. The quiet part is actually the respectful part in a weird way. He knows this isn't on brand. He knows it doesn't fit the narrative of the gentle, flower-crowned icon. So he did it in the background, hoping the spotlight would stay firmly on the music and the films. And honestly, I respect the hustle more than the hypocrisy that would have come with a public celebration of it. We live in a world where the lines between content creator, artist, and entrepreneur are completely blurred. Harry Styles is all three. And sometimes those three people have a meeting, and the entrepreneur wins the argument because the entrepreneur is the one looking at the spreadsheet that says, diversified assets sentiment analysis. Now, here's the part where we have to look at the timeline of how this all exploded because the internet never forgets, and the receipts are always digital. It started with a few niche pop culture accounts on social media who actually read the fine print of production company filings. These are the unsung heroes of gossip, people with too much time on their hands and a deep, forensic understanding of IMDb Pro. They noticed a connection between a shell company linked to Styles and a new reality TV venture greenlit for next year. Then came the clips. Oh, the clips. Suddenly, my feed was flooded with grainy videos from 2019 and 2020 interviews where Harry is asked about his guilty pleasure TV shows. In one particular clip that has resurfaced more times than I can count, he kind of smirks and says something to the effect of, "I don't really get the appeal of watching people argue for no reason." Now, in a vacuum, that's a perfectly normal thing for a human being to say. But when you place that clip next to a headline that reads, Harry Styles profits from new show Beach House Brawls, the optics are not great. It's like finding out the vegan influencer secretly owns a butcher shop. It doesn't mean they're eating the steak, but they're definitely taking a cut of the sales. And the online discourse, as it tends to do, has spiraled into two very distinct camps. On one side, you have the purists who feel that this is the first crack in the facade. They argue that you cannot be the face of kindness and simultaneously fund an industry that has been heavily criticized for exploiting the mental health of its participants. That's a valid point, and it's not one to be dismissed lightly. The history of reality TV is littered with examples of people being pushed to their emotional brink for the sake of a rating point. By associating with that world even tangentially, does he lose the moral high ground he's so clearly staked out? It's a complicated ethical equation, and the answer probably lies somewhere in the messy middle. On the other side of the aisle, you have the pragmatists and the hardcore defenders. Their argument is simple. He's an entertainer, not a politician. He's not running on a platform of abolishing unscripted drama. He's a singer who made a business decision. They also point out, and this is a key detail often lost in the shouting match, that we don't actually know the kind of reality TV he's invested in. It's alleged that the company produces a wide range of content, from high-stakes game shows to, yes, the more drama-heavy stuff. Could his money be specifically tied to a show about glass blowing? We don't know. The lack of clarity is the gasoline on this particular fire. If it came out tomorrow that he was executive producing a new version of the Great British Bake Off, but with more rock and roll, this entire controversy would evaporate by lunchtime. People would be calling him a genius. Context is king, and right now, we're missing the crown. The narrative is being driven entirely by the worst possible interpretation of the word reality TV. And let's just sit with that for a second, because the psychology behind the reaction is far more interesting than the business deal itself. Why are we, as a collective audience, so possessive over the persona of Harry Styles? I think it's because he represents a rare commodity in the 2026 celebrity landscape. He's actually nice. Or at least, the projection of him is nice. In a world of constant celebrity feuds, cryptic tweets and messy public breakups, Harry Styles has been the calm eye of the hurricane. He shows up, looks great, sings about fruit and leaves. We've projected so much safety onto him that any deviation from that path feels like a personal betrayal. It's parasocial, sure, but it's also human nature. We curate our own realities just as much as he does. I curate my social media feed to avoid negativity. I choose the news sources that don't spike my anxiety. Harry curated an image of artistic integrity. This investment slightly tarnishes the gold leaf on that frame. It doesn't break the picture, but you notice the flaw more. And as I'm analyzing this, I can't help but chuckle at the sheer absurdity of the situation. We are living in a timeline where a pop star's passive income stream is a top trending topic. There are literal wars being fought, economic policies being debated, and yet here we are, collectively deciding if Harry Styles is a sellout because a portion of his net worth might be tied to a show where someone has to decide if their connection is stronger than a beach bonfire. It's peak 21st century entertainment discourse. But here's the resolution to that earlier loop I opened. What happens next? Where does Harry go from here? According to sources close to his team, and again, this is all via those trade publications, there is currently no plan to address the investment publicly. And frankly, that might be the smartest move in the book. Because what is there to say? I apologize for making money in a legal and thriving sector of the media industry. That's not a great soundbite. The silence is a strategy. Let the news cycle eat itself. Let the next big celebrity drama take over the algorithm. And by the time he drops a new single, this will be a footnote on a fan wiki. But the residue of this moment will linger. It serves as a reminder that the artists we adore are, at the end of the day, products of a vast industrial complex. They have teams, they have accountants, they have spreadsheets. And sometimes those spreadsheets include line items that don't quite align with the lyrics printed on the vinyl sleeve. Does that make the music sound any different? Does it make me second-guess the sincerity of a song like Matilda? Maybe just a tiny bit, but then I remember that even Shakespeare had to pay the rent, and he wrote some pretty brutal stuff for the crown. The complexity is what makes this story so sticky. It's not a black and white issue. It's 50 shades of beige, a color that, ironically, Harry Styles wears very well. My personal, human take on all of this. It's a shrug wrapped in a laugh. I think it's hilarious and incredibly on brand for the chaotic energy of the 2020s that this is what we're arguing about. I'm not mad at Harry for diversifying his portfolio. In fact, I'm almost impressed by the audacity of the quiet drop. It's a power move disguised as a sleepy financial filing. But I also completely understand why a fan who has bought into the treat people with kindness mantra feels a little cheated by the association with an industry known for being unkind. Both things can be true at once. He can be a kind person and a capitalist. The two are not mutually exclusive, even if the Instagram aesthetic makes it seem like they should be. This entire situation is just a very public reminder that you should never, ever meet your hero's financial advisors. The ripple effects of this are actually quite fascinating when you zoom out and look at the broader ecosystem of celebrity. For years, we've seen A-list actors move into production to control their narrative and ensure they get paid. But this is different. This is a musician dipping into a world that is often looked down upon by the serious artist community. It's almost subversive. By investing in reality TV, Styles is essentially betting on the thing that most serious artists claim to despise. It's like if Bob Dylan had secretly owned a disco record label in the 70s. It doesn't negate blood on the tracks, but it does make you look at the man a little differently. And that's where the humor, the sarcasm, and the genuine curiosity meet. I find myself wondering if Harry Styles himself watches these shows now. Is he sitting in his London home, feet up, watching a rough cut of a screaming match over a stolen sarong, and thinking, this is a good return on investment? Or is it so far removed from his day-to-day that he's completely hands-off? The mystery of it is what keeps us clicking. The open loop of this story isn't whether he's guilty of hypocrisy. That's subjective and boring. The open loop is, what does this mean for the future of his brand? Does this signal a shift where he cares less about the pristine, curated image and more about building a financial fortress that allows him to do whatever weird, artistic thing he wants next? Maybe this is all to fund a 5-hour art film shot entirely on a boat. If that's the case, then bring on the trashy reality TV, I say. Give me Love Island, if it means I get Fine Line Part 2. The ends might just justify the means. But as we wrap up this deep dive into the least expected controversy of the month, it's worth remembering that the internet is a fickle place. Tomorrow, a new tweet will surface, a new album will drop, a new rumor will spark, and the storm around Harry's investment portfolio will recede like a tide going out. But for tonight, we're all left with that slightly odd taste in our mouths. The taste of realizing that even the coolest, kindest, most feather boa-wearing rock star in the world is still, at his core, running a business. And in the business of entertainment, as it turns out, drama always pays the bills. It's a funny old world, isn't it? The guy who wanted to escape the manufactured drama of a boy band has found himself quietly profiting from the manufactured drama of strangers on a beach. And honestly, that plot twist is so wild, it's almost worthy of a reality TV show itself.